Okay, well, this is sort of the show and tell portion of the interview, and one of the things that we might want to get a little shot of here is this is what a typical live-action role-playing or LARP weapon, known as a boffer, for those games that involve physical combat. This is a pretty nice one, actually, and it is foam, so that the idea is I could, strike the cameraman, strike a fellow player, and not actually hurt them. Some games have a different combat system. They might use actually rocks, paper, and scissors, or they might use like a gun that shoots these little sort of pellets. But this is a pretty common thing. And there are other weapons that, this is an example. Kelly here is holding the Morning Star. This is a particularly nasty looking one. And there's other kinds of swords here. But one of the key sort of emblematic objects in my book, anyway, is that I rediscover my box of old Dungeons and Dragons paraphernalia, and it in fact was this Coleman cooler, which I had been storing in my parents' basement. And I, in real life and in the book, I recount my story of opening this up and looking inside it and realizing, holy crap, all this stuff from my childhood, including this dice bag, was in the box, and some of my old gaming gear, including the Dungeon Master's Guide. This is sort of the Bible of the DM, the Dungeon Master's, how the Dungeon Master basically runs the game. It's full of all kinds of ridiculous rules and charts and so forth. And it has, this is the original, now there's something I need to say about this. This is, when I was in high school, when we got a new textbook, our teacher would tell us to go home and cover it with brown paper shopping bag. I don't know if this is the case.
Yeah, we did.
So I bought my brand new Monster Manual from the hobby shop, and I went home and I covered it in brown paper bag. So this is circa 1980. This is a good, you did the math, 30 years ago, okay? So this is a Monster Manual, which is sort of a compendium of all the monsters you would encounter in a Dungeon and Dragons game. And, with these somewhat primitive artwork and all the attributes that they would have. What else is in here that's worth looking at? One of the things that a dungeon would always have would be a map of a, let's see if I can find one here, a map of a particular world. This is a notebook that I had. This is actually an example of one of the novels, Lord of the Rings style novels that I tried to write, which I actually typed up as a kid. And this is a character sheet, okay? And this is a bad drawing I made of some character. But one of the things that you would always have would be maps. And so as the person who's designing the world, you would draw on graph paper, always on graph paper, a map of what that underground world would look like that the characters would have to go on an adventure through. So anyway, I have just notebooks and notebooks full of this stuff. And amazingly, it's all kind of intact. It's a little musty. Some more drawings that, I don't think I did that one. One of my friends did that one. We had one guy in our group who was a particularly good artist. We were like, could you draw our character for us?
Every group has.
Yeah, there's one guy. I don't know if there's anything else in here that's really worth getting into, but the other thing that I wanted to maybe show you was, alongside with the Dungeons and Dragons thing was my entryway, the gateway drug into fantasy was also Lord of the Rings. And this is the original box set of the Lord of the Rings trilogy that I bought at one point during high school. I since lost the first volume, so I had to replace it with this inferior version of the Fellowship of the Ring, but this is the, now these aren't original first editions, but were published in sometime during the 1980s or something. And I have a very vivid memory of reading this with a friend of mine who was also a D&D player, and we both were reading it at the same time. We had two different sets, and we would talk about how far we were, like on the school bus, on the ride to school, like, where are you at now? Like, oh, I'm at the places where the elves do this, or whatever it was. So we were having a race to see who could finish it.
All right, we got a minute left.
Okay. So anyway, the gaming can be, like anything, a hobby. You end up it's a place to sink a lot of money into, too. You can collect dice, you can collect miniatures, you can buy all these rule books. I think I spent a lot of my allowance on this stuff as a kid. Let's see.
Well, I mean,
Any other thoughts?
Yeah, I mean...
Should we have a sword fight here?
Well, let's have... Okay. Okay, watch that light. right.
I'm going to smite you.
All right, Ethan Gilsdorf, Fantasy Freaks and Gaming Geeks. Pick it up. It's good fun.